There we go. I think we're ready to start. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm Sherry Honeycutt. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Public Works Department. And we are so incredibly excited to present to you our Vision Zero Action Plan. And I have with me Bailey Walters, who is one of our engineers here, and she will be going over the whole program for us. And so we're really excited to show you how we plan on eliminating serious injuries and fatalities on our streets by 2030. So just to go over what we're going to talk about this evening, we have our welcome, which is right now. Hello. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the background of Vision Zero, and then we're going to go over that action plan overview. At the end, there will be opportunity for you guys to ask questions. And so hopefully we'll have some great answers for you guys. So please remember just a few things. Please stay muted unless you're called on to speak. This helps reduce stoppage time and keeps us focused on what we're talking about, and it can reduce any distractions. Also, we are recording this meeting, so this meeting will be available to watch after we are finished, and we are going to post it on the project website. Use the chat box during this meeting, so if you have any questions or comments, you can go ahead and post those in the box, and we'll get as many of those answered during our question and answer session. And then this meeting will be exactly 1 hour. We will finish at 6 p.m. And then if you have any feedback on anything we've talked about in this meeting, please reach out to Bailey and I, and we will be happy to help you with that. So without further ado, here's Bailey to tell us all about Vision Zero.
Yeah, welcome everyone. It's great to have some Kansas Cityans here learning more about Vision Zero, and I'm excited to present on it as it's one of my, I guess, passion projects, something I really care a lot about and I'm excited to be working on. For some background for you guys, there was a resolution passed through the Kansas City Council in May of 2020. And as you can see, Section 3 is kind of what we're covering tonight, which is the part that calls on us to create an action plan focusing on education, engineering, and enforcement. So that is the section being covered tonight, but I included the other sections that were included in that resolution just for information there. As you can see, Section 7 had it due in December. We're a little bit behind there, but we have started on other projects being implemented this summer, which we're excited about too. But that's the little bit of background on how it came to be. As for the actual Vision Zero Action Plan overview, there are different sections in our action plan. It's a pretty heavy document in terms of data analysis as well as steps and areas we are looking to improve. The first part of the document is the data analysis with crash summary. We have public involvement summary as well, and how we're incorporating the public involvement from previous Vision Zero engagement efforts. There's a policy and process review in the action plan, and then we will go through tonight the action plan, the focus areas, our core safety principles, and our action steps. And then additionally in the action plan, but we won't discuss too much tonight, is a monitoring section just to keep us on track and make sure we're monitoring our efforts as we go along. So here are some, I guess, headliners in Kansas City, Missouri for our crash statistic analysis. This is from 2010 to 2020. 783 lives were lost on our streets. 3,879 people were seriously injured. 37% of these crashes were young people being under the age of 30. That's a 37% increase since 2010. We've seen that increase go up, and that's been nationwide. These crashes and these fatalities, they result in a $15.85 billion loss in economic losses. And then Black users are twice as likely to be killed as white users on our streets in Kansas City. And that makes us very sad, honestly. Next, in comparison to other cities, our crash rate per 100,000 people in this city ranks pretty poorly among peer cities. We are doing better than Memphis, St. Louis, and Atlanta, but as you can see, we do have more crashes per 100,000 people than a lot other of our peer cities like Nashville, Indianapolis, Austin, and the others here, with Minneapolis, Minnesota doing the best on this comparison list here. So we've got some work to do, but we are eager to be doing that. In terms of Vision Zero, this might not be your first time hearing the term Vision Zero, but if it is, I will give an overview of this approach. So in traditional traffic safety approaches, the premise was that deaths are inevitable. Like, oh, we're just going to be having deaths on our roads, and that's just how it is when we have cars driving on these streets. The Vision Zero approach states that deaths are preventable and we don't need to have people dying on our streets. The goal used to be preventing all types of crashes. The Vision Zero approach is more focused on preventing fatal and serious injury crashes. The traditional approach for traffic safety was perfecting human behavior and perfecting driver behavior, walker behavior, and cyclist behavior, whereas the Vision Zero traffic safety approach is more so aimed at designing a road system that accounts for human error and knowing that we all make mistakes, whether we're driving, walking, or biking, and that we can design a system that might account for those mistakes. In the traditional approach, the responsibility, this is kind of similar, was on the users, the drivers, the pedestrians, and the cyclists. But in our Vision Zero approach, it's a shared responsibility between users, designers, operators, and all of the like. So all of us on this call. In terms of data analysis that has been done for this plan, we will go through some of the crash safety or crash summary trends and different behaviors that we saw that stick out. We have done a systemic risk analysis, seeing like what types of roads tend to be most dangerous in our city, like what characteristics are on those streets that tend to be more dangerous. And seeing if we can prevent those from being designed in the future. And then we also have different crash maps like our high injury network, our high risk network, and different crash rates. Here is a crash summary through the years from 2010 to 2020, a summary of KSI crashes. KSI stands for killed or seriously injured. Also, we sometimes state that as fatal or serious injury crashes. But that's with our Vision Zero approach, we're focused on these KSI crashes. We're utilizing data from the Missouri STARS system, and we know that this data has limitations with reporting and bias, but it has been vetted and is trusted as well. So just FYI on that's the data we're using. As you can see here, there's been a 74% increase in fatal crashes and a 37% increase in KSI crashes in Kansas City since 2010. Sheree, if you can post these links in the chat, the maps that are posted online, they're kind of hard to show on a screen. It's a little bit easier for users to zoom in and out yourself to look at these maps since Kansas City is so large. But we have a high injury network map that shows you which corridors are shown to have a lot of crashes in our crash database. Our high risk network is identifying corridors that have the characteristics of dangerous streets. And then our crash rate maps, those show different crash rates at those different corridors. So Sheree, if you can add those in the chat, that would be awesome. And then people can zoom in and out of those and see for yourself what in your neighborhood that might be dangerous, or if you're interested in different areas. But here are some snips of those maps. So as you can see on the right here, the dark red would be our most dangerous corridors. The lighter red is the lesser of the most dangerous corridors, and then the orange, and then the blue for our high injury network map. 68% of our fatal and serious injury crashes happen on 13% of our streets. So, and then also 45% of our high injury network corridors are in disadvantaged areas, whereas only 31% of our streets are in disadvantaged areas. And these disadvantaged areas are defined by the U.S. Department of Transportation. So those are pretty, and those are the shaded gray areas on the map. In terms of public involvement, we have done extensive public involvement in the past year or two, from different traffic calming that's getting implemented to 6 intersections that are getting overhauled this summer. And then we've also had this engagement map online where people could go and add dots for areas that they find to be dangerous so that we could know where people are experiencing traffic safety concerns. And from that map, here's an export of those dots. So at the time that we exported it, we had 941 comments on there, with the most of them being 250 of them being pedestrian danger or some sort of pedestrian issue. The next most common was unsafe intersections and concerns at intersections. And then, as you can see, as we go up the list, the numbers go down. But I'm going to cover specifically pedestrian danger, unsafe intersections, bike danger, and racing and aggressive driving, kind of tied in with speeding, as those being the top concerns that we've heard from the public in terms of traffic safety. So for pedestrian danger, in our action plan, we have, this is just one of the steps we have to address pedestrian danger, but to improve all crossings, and to add more frequent safe crossings for pedestrians is in our action plan, directly addressing that concern that we've heard from the public. And so we're excited to be using this engagement and add these items in our action plan and prioritize them in such a way. The next highest on our engagement list was unsafe intersections. And so things included in our action plan are to analyze the intersections where signals could be removed. We have a lot of signals in this city, and signalized intersections, as we'll see later in this meeting, have a high crash rate compared to other types of intersections. And so we want to analyze our signalized intersections in depth for that. Additionally, adding pedestrian push buttons and leading pedestrian intervals where signals are needed or left in place. And then additionally, in our action plan, we have a proposal to add more roundabouts where possible, as they have a much less fatal and serious crash rate than signalized intersections. In terms of addressing bicycle danger, in our action plan, we have to install more protected bicycle facilities. You can see some of this happening right now in our city with Hickman Mills and Prospect, as well as Grand Boulevard, which is in the process of being finished, as some of you know. But we're excited about those facilities being installed this summer, and are putting this in our action plan to continue to add dedicated facilities to address that bicycle danger concern. And then on the speeding concern, speeding and racing and aggressive driving, in our action plan, we have steps to reduce speed limits, and to analyze all 35-mile-an-hour streets for a speed limit reduction, as those have a larger proportion of fatal and serious crashes than other speed limited streets. And so those are just a few of the things that are in our action plan, directly addressing those items from the engagement. Next, we'll talk about the focus areas, which are the areas that came about from the data analysis that we need to focus heavily on, because some types of crashes or some types of users might be overrepresented in our crashes. And then I'll talk about core safety principles, the principles we'll use to address these items, and then more action steps. So our focus areas are equity, speed, high crash locations, high risk locations, bicycle and pedestrian crashes, broadside crashes, fixed object, careless road users, male road users, and young road users. So starting off with equity, 45%, I'll say this again, 45% of our high injury network is in our disadvantaged areas, whereas only 31% of our roads are there. For our fatal and serious injury crashes by race, a much larger portion of these happen with Black users than with white users. And so the greatest, and so this is something we want to address and put a focus on. So as you can see, kind of the conclusion from that, the greatest concentration of high risk roads and high injury roads are in disadvantaged areas. So that's something that came about in our analysis. Additionally, here's some more charts showing the similar thing as I just stated. You can see on the right chart, it broken out between urban, suburban, and rural roads. Even in each context, when a road is in a disadvantaged area, it has a higher chance of having a fatal and serious injury crash just by being in a disadvantaged area. So there's that. For speed, you can see here is where the 35-mile-per-hour roads are overrepresented compared to other speed roads. And so that's how that action point came about, was because a lot of our 35-mile-an-hour roads are having a larger proportion of fatal and serious injury crashes. On the right, you can see the fatal and serious injury crashes split out by aggressive drivers. 29% of crashes are classified with aggressive drivers. Here is a list of our high crash locations split out between dangerous corridors and then dangerous intersections. And these are shown on the interactive maps that Sheree has posted in the chat. But our top 10 corridors in Kansas City are Prospect Avenue, Bruce R. Watkins, also known as Highway 71, Troost, Truman, Emmanuel Cleaver, Gregory, Independence, Blue, 39th and 23rd. And then I won't read through the list of intersections, but a lot of them align with corridors or are on high injury network corridors. Here, on this, we can see an overrepresentation on the right side of our 6-lane and 4-lane roads, specifically on undivided roads. Like 6-lane road would be Truman Road. And then there are some other examples of different 4-lane roads, but the representation ratio just shows you that these roads are overrepresented in the fatal and serious injury crashes. So these characteristics are ones that are most likely to be of a dangerous road. And then this chart on the left takes a little bit of explaining. So my apologies for the lengthy in-depth explain here, but I find it to be pretty fascinating. The red bar is for roads that have a vehicle to capacity ratio from 0 to 0.75. And so that means there's more space on the road than there are cars on the road. It's not being used as much as there is space for. whereas the blue 1.1 to 2 vehicle to capacity ratio means the road is more highly congested, as some people would put it, or it's being used over its initial capacity. And so as you can see, the roads that have a lower vehicle to capacity ratio, so the roads that are more free, have more space, there's not as many cars filling them, they have a higher crash representation rate than the roads that are more congested. So we're seeing more crashes on roads that are less congested than we are on roads that are more congested. And that's split out between lower volume roads and higher volume roads, but it's the same for both. And then here is kind of where I was talking about on our action plan for risk and concern at intersections. We can see that at traffic signals, we see a lot more KSI crashes there than we do at stop controlled or roundabout intersections. And so that's definitely something we are wanting to address and we'll be addressing in our action plan. And I just want to say our action plan is the steps on how we will address it. And so we hope to put together this great steps that we can be moving forward on this, but we don't necessarily have like a designated timeline yet on when all of these steps might be completed. So. Next, on our pedestrian and bicycle crashes, you can see that 15% of our KSI crashes are people walking or biking, yet only 4.8% of our trips in the city are walking and biking trips. And so pedestrian and bicyclists are also overrepresented in our crashes. Additionally, by crash type, you can see here that most crashes are angle crashes or fixed object crashes, and then the next most frequent is pedestrian, and then head-on and rear end. Again, this is the aggressive driver chart where 29% of our drivers are classified as aggressive. So that's a pretty large portion of our KSI crashes that we can address and add action steps in our action plan to address this. Additionally, in terms of breaking out those aggressive drivers that can be seen similarly as impaired or distracted drivers, but they are classified as different things when we're looking at crashes. We have 77.6% of our fatal and serious crashes involve an impaired driver, and 4.6% of our crashes involve a distracted driver. In terms of the gender of the people in fatal and serious injury crashes, 73% are male. And so that's not representative of our population split. And so men are overrepresented in the crashes as well. In terms of age group, the highest age group that is overrepresented in our crashes and our fatal and serious crashes are from age 20 to 24, but you can see really that 20 to 40 age range is highly represented. So if you're of that age range, be careful for sure. I mean, everyone, but especially them, those people. And you can see that 28.2% of our fatal and serious injury crashes involve a youth driver. For our core safety principles in our action plan, we're of course prioritizing safety. That is what Vision Zero is. Prioritizing safe speeds, safe streets, safe intersections, safe users, safe modes, safe and equitable enforcement, and accurate data. In our action steps, we will have steps and different items to update different policies and ordinances, like updating our statutory speed limits and changing the way we implement our traffic calming program. We also have already started doing this process improvements bullet of project prioritization and capital improvement planning. So Vision Zero, and if a road is on our high injury network, or if it's a high injury intersection, it's being rated higher on our capital improvement project planning list in terms of the way it's rated and ranked. Different system-wide action steps, improvements to address systemic risk. For example, we know that signalized intersections are overrepresented, so taking a systemic look at those and noting which ones might not need a signal anymore, which could be changed, would be a type of systemic risk that we would put as an action in our action plan. And then also addressing low-cost distributed improvements applied to many locations, knowing that we have a high widespread risk map, and so we can distribute our action plan improvements throughout the city, and don't necessarily need to look specifically at every little intersection, but to widespread do these improvements where we can, would be a different system-wide type of action step. And then targeted project action steps, like specifically addressing those high crash locations and corridors, and doing a more high cost focus improvement on those corridors or intersections, is also a way that we can target our action plan and different action steps addressing that. So that would be a more proactive approach addressing known high crash locations, and the system-wide would be a more system-wide would be more proactive, trying to get to things before they happen, and then reactive would be targeting the places that crash is already happening. Sorry for that. Yeah, okay. Let's see.
All right.
What questions we have.
Turn my camera back on here. We had a couple questions. The first one is, do we have crash and injury data by time of day? So do we know if more crashes happen during the middle of the night, the morning?
Yes, actually we do. And that analysis has shown that on Friday evenings and afternoons, that's a very highly represented time, as well as Sunday evening. So those two times kind of stood out to me on first glance of that chart. Hopefully that's helpful, Sean.
And then our second question is, will the action plan be available online?
It is not currently available online, but it will be. We are working on finalizing that in the coming months and hope to have it posted on our Vision Zero website.
And then are there any other questions from anybody here in our meeting? We have about a half an hour left, so plenty of time to ask any questions you have about our plan and what we're trying to do by making these streets safer. You can go ahead and raise your hand as well if you have a question. All right, Michael wants to know, what is the process at this point for approval?
So from here forward, we will finish up this action plan and take it to City Council for their approval. I believe first reading is planned to be the week of August 8th, and so the week of August 15th and 22nd would be when it would be read at City Council. And so if you guys want to urge your City Council person to support it, that's always helpful. Sheree, you're on mute.
I am muted. I said Bryson has a question. He raised his hand. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, I just want to know, was this recording going to be made available afterwards?
Yes, so we discussed that at the very beginning, but we are going to put this on our website. So we are recording this and it'll be available so you can watch it anytime, and you can share it with your friends and your family and make sure they understand what Vision Zero is and what our plan is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, here's one. Tammy wants to know, could you talk a little bit more about how this differs from the Vision Zero implementation plan that is proposed for MARC PSP? If you know what that is.
Got you. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Yeah, Tammy, I'm assuming you work at MARC. Is that correct?
No, I don't. I'm with Tool Design, and I'm just kind of interested in how, like, it seems like you've done so much work, and it's fantastic. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what you're hoping to do in that next step with the MARC PSP.
Gotcha. Jason, did you want to chime in there?
Yeah, if you guys don't mind. Hi, good evening. Thanks for attending here. I'm Jason Waldron, Transportation Director in Public Works. So really with the efforts you've heard and seen tonight is really capturing a lot of those things we've already done. We kind of led with the action, right? With some of those great opportunities that Bailey did a really nice job of describing. And so this phase of it is really collecting everything we've done to this point and putting it into a snapshot of where we are today. And so the MARC application would be the next phase. We want this document to be a living and breathing document. So we're proud of some of the work we've done, but we know there's a lot of work left to do, and it's really looking forward to that day 2, and we're hoping for a little support from MARC to get there.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Anybody want to raise their hand? Or any comments you have? If you have any feedback on the work that we've done, we would love to hear that as well. Bailey, do you have anything you want to comment about the work and just why you're so passionate about Vision Zero and what it means to you? I think people would love to hear that.
Oh, man. Yes, I love this work and getting to work on it. I think that making our streets safer allows for more people to be out on the street walking and biking or playing or whatever else, and that helps people to be able to see one another more and to kind of humanize our right of way in a way that we might be interacting with each other more rather than not feeling safe in our cars or feeling safe outside of the cars. And so that's kind of the reason I'm passionate about it and really do get excited to be able to work on it.
How long did it take you to put all of this work together? Because there's so much detail in this and just so much hard work that you put in, I know. Talk to me about the process of how you guys put all of this together.
This has been years in the making, as you can see from the resolution happening in 2020. I started with the city in March of this year, so I've kind of jumped on at the tail end of the making of this action plan, but there has been many different engagement sessions and analyses done on choosing the 6 intersections that got chose for this year and the 50 traffic calming locations and the locations we're adding LPIs at this year as well as bike lanes. But in terms of getting to this point in the action plan, a lot of the work and data analysis had already happened with our comprehensive plan in the transportation section of that. And so we are able to work with that team and continue the analysis focused on fatal and serious crashes to come to this point. There's been a lot of work done in other cities by the US DOT and different agencies to identify proven countermeasures. And we're excited to be trying some of those this summer and then also including those and more in our action plan. So it was kind of the pieces were all kind of there and we're putting them all together right now this summer within a couple months, which is really awesome.
we had a comment. I don't know if it's a question, but we had a comment, and maybe you can comment on that. It says Kansas City decided to go for federal implementation funding instead of planning funding. Maybe the city is requesting money from Planning Sustainable Places to further fill out the planning side.
You got it, Mark or Patrick.
Yeah, sorry, I work at Mark. I just speculating there.
Yeah, I would just add to this, Patrick, that we will have a standalone action plan at the end of this exercise. What the Mark request would be is to continue refining that plan. So that action plan will be done and completed and accepted by the city, and then we'll be going after the implementation opportunity.
Jason, what does this project mean to you to work on it and see it implemented throughout the city?
Just for me, in general, we've got a lot of exciting things we have going on. Everything from, Vision Zero to streetcar to the bike lane initiative, and it's all just kind of coming together. To me, it just represents a comprehensive approach to transportation, not being tilted in any one direction, but understanding that we have all the modes and all the users in the right of way, and we have a responsibility to serve all of our citizens and stakeholders. And that doesn't mean, early in my career, I'd heard, equal doesn't always mean equality, and we've got to understand, where the greatest needs are, and part of that is understanding, getting this high injury network really helps us tell the story and really helps us to focus on those areas. And I'll be honest, I was distracted a little bit by a couple crabby teenagers during middle of this, and just want to reemphasize that per the resolution that equity is put at the forefront. So there's two things. We're looking at all these different evaluation criteria when we plan this stuff out. How close, pedestrian volumes, how close they are to schools, how close they are to transit stops. But the two things in the forefront, at least at the moment, are fatalities and equity, understanding and identifying those life X zones. So that's what the resolution directed us to do, and that's what we've been doing.
We have another question from Brian Morris. He says, has any research been done on funding allocation, comp city comparisons, and what's the process for funding these projects?
I'll take a stab at it, Brian. I think that others have maybe done some analysis, especially in the transit world and transit funding allocation. In terms of Vision Zero funding allocation, I think our first step here at the city is to get the eyes of our funders on the actual the amount that these crashes cost our city. I think on one of my first items in the billions of dollars that this costs our city. And if we are to have less of these crashes, we'll then have more money available to do things about them. And so the process is to, I guess, grab that attention first and create a plan saying we're ready to do something and we have reasons to. But as of right now, we're applying for federal grants to address these, but it's also important to educate and just make everyone aware of the issues that are up front in our city.
Bailey, let me ask you this, because I was looking at the presentation and we touched on bike lanes, but that's a big topic right now. Can you talk to me about the Hickman Mills and Paseo intersection and all the bike lanes we're adding right now and the connectivity of how we are trying to connect those to different trails?
Yeah, so there's one that is almost finished with implementation right now at Hickman Mills and Prospect. It goes from Hickman Mills at the Paseo down to Prospect and 85th, and that one connects down to the trolley trail, which is a very long separated facility and trail that goes all the way up to Brush Creek. And so we're excited about the connectivity of that. Some different protected bicycle lanes going in this year. Grand Boulevard. We'll be extending the Gillum Road cycle track up Oak Street. And then some other east-west connections that will be added are Truman Road, 27th Street, and 23rd Street. So those are just to name a few, but we're excited about these bike lanes because they are going to be protected facilities, meaning there's the vertical separation there, which really provides that safety rather than just paint in the road. So it more so keeps cars out of those lanes than painted bike lanes.
Can you talk a little bit about how connecting them to those larger trails helps keep people safe on the road? Does it do that?
Yes, of course. I think if you have a lot of little facilities everywhere, it doesn't provide any connectivity, right? So we're excited to be connecting more facilities that we have sprinkled throughout the city and allow people to get from one place to another from a long distance in a safe facility. I think that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And then does anybody else have any more questions? We have just about 18 more minutes, and so plenty of time to ask anything on your mind, anything you can think of. Jason, is there anything you wanted to go over too? Anything you saw in the presentation that you'd love to expand on?
The only thing I would expand on is we're being, to the last question about funding sources, we're being very creative and we're not being selective at all, whether it be, finding it in our own budgets, piggybacking, street resurfacing, capital projects, going after federal, state, or regional funding. And that's, credit to Bailey and Bobby Evans, who couldn't be here with tonight. We've shown some of that commitment to the city by rebuilding the bicycle and pedestrian group. And again, anybody on this call has any ideas? I don't think we've said no to any funding opportunity. So and that helps us deliver some of these things that we described tonight.
Bailey, is there anything you can think to expand on? I know there was so much that you wanted to talk about and you were like, oh, I have to, make sure I get everything in time. So is there anything you think you would like to expand on?
I don't think so. I just want to give a shout out to our team who's been working on all this data analysis. We've had Jay Aber and some others helping with this. And so just a shout out to him and his team, because having the data and having the analysis really helps to, I guess, emphasize the problem that we have and just really get us up on our horses to get going. And so I don't think there's any particular data that I needed to or wanted to expand on, but was excited to share it with you all. Obviously didn't take as long as I was expecting, but that's okay. Are you muted, Sheree?
My button keeps sticking, so sorry about that.
No problem.
I was going to say, we had a meeting earlier this week where we talked about a lot of this, and we had a couple community groups on there. Can you talk about how we work with community groups on this plan and why it's so important to have their voice?
Definitely. Without the community being involved, none of this would be effective or accepted. And so it is critical to have everyone's input and everyone's eyes and ears knowing what's going on, because it can't just be us within our own cubes and offices knowing the problem, but spreading that news with everyone, because the solution, as the Vision Zero approach says, it does involve everyone from policymakers to engineers to the users to everyone involved in our transportation system. So it's very important, and much appreciate your attendance and engagement in this and any future involvement in Vision Zero. This definitely is not our last Vision Zero meeting. We will continue having public involvement in projects and in different ways in the future. So keep your eyes and ears out on our Vision Zero website.
Any last questions or thoughts or feedback? Tammy says, great presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. We really appreciate that. So as we mentioned at the beginning, this meeting will be available online for you to review and share, and we hope that you do. We hope that you go after this and tell all your friends and family about the great upgrades that are coming to Kansas City streets and how we are working really hard to make sure that people are safe and we reduce serious injuries and fatalities by 2030 through this program. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and we really appreciate it. Any final words, Bailey? Any final words, Jason?
No, thank you all.
All right.
Thanks for coming. These things are not as fun when no one shows up, so we appreciate it.
Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you have a great night. Goodbye.